Hi, Carla. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Anya. So excited to share and to chat.
Yeah, same. So let's dive right in and tell us like a little bit about your journey with egg freezing, and what the process looks like, what you have to go through.
Sure. So I really started thinking about it last year after I went for my yearly checkup with my gyno. And she just mentioned it because I'm now 36. And she said, after 35, the quality of the eggs decreases. So is this something that you might consider, given that you're single and, no babies or men inside? So since I live in Portugal, and Portugal is one of the cheapest countries to do it, I actually just decided to go for it because I figured, like, I'm healthy, I don't feel old, I have the money right now. So I thought it was just going to be a super easy process. And you have to be in the same country for an entire cycle. So I did it I think it was in March this year. And basically the process is really quite simple. Like, you go to the clinic, you start it, you have to get checked. I think it's just before you have your period, and then they see just how many follicles you have. And then you start taking the hormones. So I had to take medication, like 2 pills every morning, and then every evening do the shots for about 8 days or 9 days. It kind of depends. You then kind of go into the clinic to just check, and they see how the eggs responded. And if they're big enough, then they basically give you more shots, and then you have the retrieval. So the whole process actually was really quite easy. I don't have a problem with needles. It is obviously a little like, you're kind of pausing your life because you have to be home at a certain time every day. And obviously throughout that process, you want to be as healthy as possible and not drink alcohol, etc. So it's like a detox. And then you go in, it's like anesthesia, 20 minutes, you're done. And then what I didn't really know was kind of what happens afterwards and how the body reacts once you stop taking the hormones. So that was actually the more difficult part for me.
Yeah, so that was my next question. Like, did you feel like supported throughout the process? I mean, you said you were good with needles, but it's still like emotionally, it sounds like a lot when you have to give yourself a shot every day and your hormones are probably a little bit all over the place, right? How was that emotionally?
Yeah, it definitely was a little bit of a lonely period in my life. I did share it with friends. I shared it with my family that I was doing it. And I think people who've not gone through it just don't understand what it means. And I literally had to tell my family, I'm having my retrieval on Sunday. It would be really nice if you could check in with me and like think of me. And then they all called me and, were really supportive. But like, I actually received the most amount of support from a previous client of mine, Vanessa, who's an egg freezing coach. And she was the one who actually inspired me to do it and who was really supportive in the whole process. But yeah, it definitely, it is a weird thing if you're doing this when you're single. And like, I definitely have never felt more single than in those few weeks in my life. And
yeah.
Afterwards was like when the hormones like drop. And it's like it was a mix of PMS feelings and just feeling almost depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really tough. No one really prepared me for that.
And that's the thing. I feel like so many topics around women's health, we are not really, they don't give you the insight. It's not a lot of support. It's like a little bit like when you have your baby, as soon as you leave the hospital, it's kind of like, okay, it's over, we did our job, and then you are more or less on your own. Then you go to the pediatrician to take care of the baby, but the women and their emotions and what they physically, mentally have to go through is kind of not a lot of support out there.
Yeah, it definitely felt like, you know, this is a business, and in the US, it's way more expensive than here or in other countries as well. But I felt supported, and the clinic, everyone was super nice. Everyone here spoke really good English. So that the whole part was fine. And they did send an email the day after to just check in on my recovery. But it felt like, yeah, I paid for this, and that's kind of, you know, the transaction.
Yeah.
And not much more. Like, I also think I could have been better prepared going into this, like understanding that I could take vitamins to just kind of boost my fertility, or I could follow a specific diet. Like, I only found all of these things out afterwards. And part is because I just didn't inform myself enough in upfront, because I thought it was just going to be quick and easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if someone wants to prepare for it, like now in hindsight, what would be your recommendation or tip to get the process started?
Yeah, so first of all, the very first thing you can do is a blood test to actually see like your level of fertility. And that doesn't cost very much. So I definitely would suggest to just, if you're thinking about it, just do it, because then you either know like, okay, I'm actually closer to like the average, or I was already a little below average, or I'm actually totally fine and I don't have to stress so much about it. And then, so I spoke to a friend who did freeze her eggs, and she was really preparing for it months in advance and was not drinking any alcohol, just being very, very healthy. I think there's a lot you can do in terms of eating meat products or animal products, and also vitamins. And she actually is 37 and got, I think, 16 or 18 eggs, and I only got 2. So
it really varies.
yeah.
And what is a good number? What do they say?
So because, you know, you're freezing them, so when you unfreeze them, some of them might not make it. They say anywhere from 10 to 15 is a good number. And so obviously with me only having 2, I would have to do multiple other rounds to get to that number, which I actually decided I'm not going to do.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time you pay. And then it's just, I think for me now, it's been 3 months since I've done it. And it was like, the first month was just really tough. The second month, even like my period was 7 days late. So then that added stress, and again, you know, hormonal changes. So it really takes a toll on your body. I think if you know that you want to have kids, it's a great option. And the sooner you do it, the better, just to like maximize the number of eggs you can get. For me, I'm not sure I want to have kids. So it seems like a lot of time and stress on my body and emotions to go through it again and again and again. But yeah,
totally. I totally get it. And the other thing is that I feel like we don't really talk a lot about is that's only part 1, because then whenever you are ready, then you have to go through the IVF process, right? So the same thing or similar procedure all over again. It is so much. Yeah.
It's a very intense journey. And I actually heard from so many women about their fertility journeys. And it just made me realize that I'm not alone with this. It was actually very, very helpful to feel understood and to feel like, just not so alone. And I think, it's the problem is like women's health there's not enough research, there's not enough resources, there's not enough support. Like just looking at some of the numbers, you know, how much money is put into erectile dysfunction research,
Oh, yeah.
PMS research, etc., or like endometriosis, all of these things. It's just so not balanced.
Totally. There's a huge gap, a lot of work to do. Yeah, but I think like what we are doing right now, talking about it, and I really appreciate you opening up, because that's such a personal and intimate thing to talk about. But for someone else to hear your story, I'm sure you're gonna inspire other women to talk more about it. And then yeah, I through you, I found out that there is coaches that help you through the process. I mean, that is amazing. So we also have to spread the word about that. So there is support out there.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, in terms of support, like Vanessa, she specializes in freezing your eggs and IVF abroad, especially for Americans. It's such an amazing option. There's nutrition practitioners, registered dietitians who actually help with the whole nutrition side of things to go in more prepared. So there is definitely support available, but I think it's like something that's not openly available. You have to, like, I found all of these women on Instagram, right? Not resources that are given from the clinics.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read somewhere that the best age to do it is actually in your 20s. I didn't even know anything about this when I was in my 20s. So I think really the education needs to be there so women can start the process sooner. But like you said, it's so expensive. So what is speaking about the cost, like just so we have a number, like how much is it in Portugal compared to a place like the US? What is the
so I spent about 400 euros on the medication. And then the first round of egg freezing at this clinic was 2,000. And then every additional round would be the meds again, and then 1,000. So you get 50% off for additional rounds. And I know from friends in the US, the medication alone is like 4,000. And then the treatment, I think it's about 10,000 per round.
Oh my God, that is so much money. And then do you have to pay like a storage fee if you want to keep your eggs for like 5 years, or is that an extra fee? I would think so.
So with this clinic, they actually store them for 3 years for free. And then it's, I believe, 30 euros a month. So it's quite okay. Again, you know, for someone in the US, it might even be worth just to come on holidays to somewhere like Portugal, get the medication and save $3,500 on that. And, you know, if you want to do it, the egg freezing actually in your place. But I think there's so many amazing options of other countries where you can do this process, that it's worth looking into, I think.
Yeah, and especially if you have to do, unfortunately, several rounds. I mean, that adds up quickly.
Yeah. There's also the option that I found out, and this wasn't really an option for me, but some of my friends who have partners or husbands and they know they want to have a baby together, just not now, you can actually freeze embryos. So it's kind of like taking one step away from the IVF and just freezing the embryos, and then they get planted when you're ready. So that's, I think the chances of then actually getting pregnant are a little bit higher.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah, it's really depressing, you know, that we have to already go through so much with our hormones and everything, and that there's not more research and ways to make this all a little easier on women.
Yeah, I think, you know, like I never really thought about it either, but just when you're a teenager, so many girls, like including me, I started taking the pill when I was like 17. And so there's years and years of taking hormones. I know now there's some other options instead of taking the pill, like more local hormones, but still, it should be something that's available to women at an earlier age, and something that shouldn't be so expensive, because as a 25-year-old, you don't have $10,000 lying around to like go and freeze your eggs.
That is so true, because if you look at the age recommendation, which is your 20s, who has that spare money at that age? True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I never even considered it, not only because it wasn't really on my radar, but also I just didn't have that money lying around.
And even in like countries like in Europe, like Portugal, it's not covered at all by insurance, is it?
So I know in the US, the insurance may take over a small percentage. I don't think in Europe, I actually didn't even look into it, because it didn't even come to my mind.
Yeah.
But even if it is, it's not a lot.
And here, even if they cover a little bit, it's so much more money up front. So it won't, in the end, it's probably still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, it's a great thing to do. I did it because I wanted to have just that peace of mind of not having to stress about it, or, go into a relationship thinking like, now this has to be the one. And I got two, so I'm okay with that. But, then it just also kind of opened my mind to, I think as a woman at one point or another, you're going to go through this when you're deciding, or when you're asking yourself, do I want to have kids? Like, it's going to happen at one point or another. For some of us, it happens when we're in our 20s. For some, it happens in our 30s. For some, it happens in our 40s. So that's something that we have to face at some point.
Yeah.
For me, it just kind of triggered that to happen now with all of this. And it's definitely given me some clarity on what I want and what I'm open to as well.
Yeah, that's great. And it's always nice to know we have options, right? There's options out there. But there's, and you might still change your mind, who knows? Now you know what it's like, and you can decide whatever you want to do. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for opening up, and let us know where women can find you. And if you are open, if anyone feels like they have more question and want to reach out to you.
Absolutely. So Instagram is probably the best way, at Carla Biesinger. You can probably put that in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm super open. If someone wants to send me a direct message, I'm happy to chat and to share or to help in any way that I can. Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate it, because there might someone be out there who would like to personally reach out and ask more questions. It's such an, personal topic too. Like, I totally get it. Yeah.
Anytime.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anja.